once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.
Vince, today's question comes from Patient Foe 11, who would like us to talk about character motivations, superhero character motivations. And I figured, we don't talk about superheroes nearly enough on this show. So, no. This is kind of an interesting thing, and Vince, I think you really want to do this one, so...
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
He says, do you think characters such as Bruce Wayne, Bruce Banner, Frank Castle, or Al Simmons being Spawn, are tragic heroes in a way that says, I do what I do because I'm broken, or do you think they overcome their past and that's what makes them so compelling? Vince, what do you think?
I don't think they've overcome their past at all.
I think that's kind of the reason that they are what they are. I mean, most of these, with the exception of Bruce Banner, are strictly vigilantes.
Yeah, these people are so hung up on what happened to them before. Well, Bruce Banner can't really help that because
yeah, I think Bruce Banner is kind of strange to be in this mix. I think he's maybe in a bit of a different category because I think the Jekyll Hyde thing is kind of a different category.
I think the overall reason why these people are interesting is because they have to deal with their past in the present. Mm-hmm. And if Bruce Banner, the reason that he has to deal with everything is chemical, so he is kind of a strange person to be on the list. But still, he has to find a way to persevere in the face of his affliction.
Yeah,
and
true.
If these people had overcome their past, there wouldn't be an affliction. Mm-hmm. It would pretty much be that they are just existing as they are now.
Yeah, I'd say in that case, Bruce Banner and the Thing are kind of exactly the same.
Yeah. That's one thing that actually bothers me about the Thing and the Fantastic Four. How many times are we going to see that same plot line where the Thing is suddenly down on his luck and I'm unhappy because I'm the Thing, but we just had a storyline last week where you came to terms with it.
Yeah, that's right.
How can you do this, stupid writers?
Yeah, so again, that's a little bit different from the others, but I think it's cool to put that in there because what it makes me wonder is how many superheroes have really overcome their past. If you look at it on the whole and you just start looking at different kinds of superheroes, because I think you have like a lot of similarities, in superhero past. You get to a point where you excuse me, you get to a point where you start getting these tropes developing, right? Where you've got you've got your tragic past, and then you've got you've got these different kinds where different ones fall in line, right? Mm-hmm. Batman is not the only character whose parents got killed in front of him and he became a superhero. There are other ones where that happens too also. And then I think maybe Superman is kind of the only character whose planet exploded, so now he's a superhero. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of that going on.
Except for all the spoofs.
But certainly that starts developing the kind of outsider sort of thing. How do I fit in? How do I become how do I become enough like these people to protect these people, but different enough from them that I can protect them?
To talk about Dexter here for a second, the Showtime TV show.
Never seen it.
It's a good show. I recommend it.
I know what it is, but I've never seen it.
But that is sort of a Superman-esque thing in a demented way. Oh wait, if I say the reason why, then I've given away part of the series.
Oh, okay.
So never mind. Scratch that. Clean cut. Move down.
Sorry, I don't know it. So.
I think if people have seen the series, they'll probably know what I'm talking about. If not, then I'm sorry, I'm not going to explain it because I don't feel like ruining first season to anybody.
Yeah, fair enough. That show's on Netflix. Look it up. Anyway, so what is it then that makes those sorts of characters, when we're talking especially about the ones who seem never to have gotten over their past but are superheroes in spite of it, or whatever they happen to be? What makes them enduring? And we've talked about the Punisher before in this context, but what is it that makes somebody like Batman or even the Huntress or characters like that? What makes them enduring when they and endearing when they are still kind of stuck in the past. Why do we look up to them?
Well, I think that it's hard for me to say that anybody would really look up to the Punisher. But
I think he's one that they don't. But Batman people do.
I think it's interesting to look at the characters like the Punisher in relation to Batman. I think that's one of the reasons that the Huntress is interesting, because people like to look at the Huntress in relation to Batman. So, because we have Batman who is dealing with this in a completely insane way. I mean, you look at it, the guy's basically nuts. His parents get killed, and then he spends the rest of his life trying to fight crime, which sounds okay. I mean, if he'd become a cop, we'd all say, now there's a nice story.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't people in real life who did that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you know, bad things happen to their family, and they said, I don't want bad things to happen to other people's families. I'm going to fight crime. In the real world, that means I'm going to become a cop. You know, if you're going to do it in the legal sort of way.
We do this practically so I don't get killed quite as easily.
Yeah, but that's not enough for Batman. Partially because Batman won't carry a gun.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, he has in the past, but
right. But I'm talking about
we're talking current.
We're talking about current Batman. Yeah, I'm talking about the full-fledged, fully realized current psychological idea of Batman, and certainly there are different ideas about Batman. We've talked about this. He is a character that is different in different places. But when we talk about how he's usually these days represented in the comics, I think we're looking at somebody who, as you said, we can look at him and go, God, he's crazy. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, if you really think about what he's doing, there is a certain logic to it. And it's really interesting because you can kind of reconcile that, but then you're like, wow, like that's really impressive. He's kind of nuts, but he's making some sense also.
You know, I think a good movie to call to is a recent movie, imperfect but still fun and interesting. The Batman Under the Red Hood.
Mm.
Loved it
on the Red Hood.
The last monologue. He just delivers a monologue that basically explains away every bit of Batman ideology.
Right.
Where he basically says, I haven't killed the Joker for this reason. And the reason is, he kills the Joker, then what's to stop him from killing other people who are a nuisance?
Right.
So he starts by killing the world's greatest madman, essentially. Or the world's most dangerous madman, take it as you will. Mm-hmm. And then somebody else is killing people. Well, that person doesn't deserve to live. And then he's on a slippery slope to becoming a monster. And I like to read a character that's basically a monster, and that's the Punisher. And that's why he's less interesting than Batman.
And I think maybe that's why I never really got the Punisher. I think that's why I was never a big fan of his, because I can see him popping into things and being kind of interesting, but I can't see reading him on a regular basis for that exact reason. You know what I mean? I think it's just a taste issue. You and I have different ideas about what we like to read and what we like to watch. But you got this guy who just goes around and kills the people who are like the person who hurt him, and that's not anything like as interesting as I'm just trying to prevent it from happening.
You know, I think it's
Batman's not about punishing people.
Yeah, he's in preventing. Well,
See, and then there's a question, isn't there?
I just thought about that in relation to The Outsiders. Did you read Judd Winnick's Outsiders?
I didn't.
I almost recommended that today.
Oh, yeah?
But I haven't read it in a while, so I don't know I couldn't say a whole lot about the story arcs. But the thing that Judd Winnick was doing with Nightwing's Outsiders, because of course there was Batman and The Outsiders.
Interesting, by the way, that you brought up Red Hood, and that's also Judd Winnick.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But
and he wrote the comic and the film. He actually fixed a lot of the problems that were in the graphic novel when he wrote the film, which is part of why it's so good.
Huh. Well, Judd Winnick's Outsiders, the entire point of The Outsiders was a preventative act. They didn't say, okay, there's a supervillain who's out there trying to create a world flood. Now we're going to have to go defeat this guy and stop this. No, their idea is developing or getting recon, developing a course of action because, okay, there's a guy who's planning to do this type of stuff. Let's squash him before he gets there.
Mm-hmm. So
I think that's kind of an interesting... And Judd Winnick treated that like it was such an original concept. And it's not. And that's what's
but
fun.
It felt like it.
It felt like it at the time. And I was reading that and I thought, he's right. This is really interesting and original. And then Batman's been doing that for years.
Uh-huh.
So, because of course he's a detective. But then again, detectives are at both ends. A person finds a plot and he has to foil the plot, or he finds a crime and he has to solve it.
Yeah, I think you can be a detective and kill people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
look
can't
at
be
Mike
a
Hamill.
licensed detective and kill people.
Well, you can be a licensed detective and kill people. You just got to be really good at it.
Right. I just mean in real life, for the most part.
That's true.
But I mean, Batman wouldn't be any less of a detective if he started killing people. We just wouldn't appreciate it as much. I think. Me personally, I find that Batman is okay. Here's the deal. I find that Batman has this really interesting psychology, but he's also in some ways a person to look up to because he's got his standards and he never goes against them. And the Punisher is not someone to look up to, and that's why some people find him interesting. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is that he thinks what he's doing is right, even though he's so far off the deep end. Mm-hmm. I think maybe is part of why that's intriguing to somebody like you. That doesn't do much for me, but I can appreciate it.
I think if we want to tie these characters together a little bit at the hip,
ooh, let's do it.
If you look at old westerns and then see westerns as they progress into revisionist westerns, we have the whole, as I said, I've used this term in a previous GNN, but the white hat, black hat, right. Where the white hat's only going to just shoot the gun out of your hand or shoot to hurt you in some way, but he's not going to kill you. Mm-hmm. But that's not the way the Old West was. I mean, if you're screwing up and somebody's got a gun, you're going to die. I mean, that's the reason they called it the Wild West. So, and then you look at revisionist westerns, and they present it very much so in that way. And by the by, a great revisionist western to watch, Unforgiven. I think that's the name of the movie.
I've heard of that.
Clint Eastwood film. It shows
right, yeah. I heard that was really cool. I'd like to see that.
It shows killers for what they are. It shows heroes for what they are. So it's really interesting. I highly recommend that film. In fact,
but you're not saying that everything has to be black and white, right?
No, and that's what I think is interesting here is between what we used to view westerns as. There is a clear-cut good guy and a clear-cut bad guy. And then it develops into somebody who's going to shoot first. So we have the Batman, who is essentially the white hat. And then we have the Punisher, who is essentially the revisionist white hat. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. Now, tied them together, here's a neat little bow. Where do we go from there?
Right. What I'm really kind of fixated on right now with all of this is what superheroes don't have like a tragic thing in their past that they never got over. Like, I think that there are that we look at certain characters as being really lighthearted and not dark, like Batman and Daredevil and characters like that. I mean, so many of those. It was somebody died or somebody got hurt, and they were in a position to do something about it. And to do something about those sorts of people. Daredevil conveniently got his powers at the right time, and Batman conveniently had money and could spend that money to go off and study and become brilliant at what he does, and that kind of thing. But then some of the characters that we see as being really lighthearted and stuff, I wonder if they don't still kind of sort of have that. Like when I was doing my rewind on Spider-Man 2, I was wondering about this with Spider-Man because we always see the death of Uncle Ben as just being, or at least I think we do, as just being like that thing that happens that makes him realize this platitude of with great power comes great responsibility. But when I was doing Spider-Man 2, I realized that there's another angle to that. There's an angle where he's atoning, and that's interesting. Like, he's really lighthearted, he makes a lot of jokes, he's got this bright, colorful costume, but but it might not just be he learned something from that. It might also be kind of like the obviously not to the same degree, but kind of like the Angel scenario in Buffy and Angel, where Angel did these terrible things in his past and now he's atoning for it. Peter Parker has that one thing in his past where he didn't stop that guy. Uncle Ben got killed. He doesn't want anybody else's Uncle Ben's to get killed, so he's atoning for that.